recently or saw this segment on social media, we're talking with Tom Sinas from Sinas Dramus Law Firm about jury trials and jury duty. And this week, we're going to take a deeper dive into jury duty, the summons, the selection, the deliberation, all of those. Thanks for joining us this morning, Tom.
Thank you, Todd, for having me back. I appreciate it.
Well, absolutely our pleasure. Let's start with the practical part. How do people find out that they've been selected for jury duty? And when they've been selected, what do?
Well, they're going to get in the mail a thing called a jury summons. It's going to look very official, as it should, because it's alerting you that you've been selected to participate in this really important process. And each jurisdiction will have a summons that may look a little bit different in terms of the direction that it's providing you as a potential juror. The significance of all of them, though, is consistent, which is that this is important, it is mandatory, and you need to participate. So in Kent County, for example, the last time I got a summons was a few years ago, and it gave you very clear instructions about what you needed to do next. And that next step was that I had to call a number a certain period of time before my summons required me to appear to ask whether or not I, in fact, needed to come appear the next day. Because just because you have been summoned for jury duty does not mean that you're going to be on a jury. As a matter of fact, it may not even mean that you ever get into the courthouse or into a courtroom. So the jury summons in Kent County will tell you to call, and then it will tell you when you call whether or not you need to report to what's called the jury room, sometimes called the jury assembly room. This is where jurors all congregate in the very beginning of that day to figure out whether they're going to go from that assembly room to a courtroom to perhaps participate in the jury questioning process. So it's a series of steps that you go through one at a time. And oftentimes it means that you get a summons and you don't end up going to court or don't end up serving on a jury. But obviously you don't know until you go through the process.
Of course. So if you get that jury summons, it does not mean automatically that you're going to be on a jury. I think we've all seen those scenes in movies, the questioning, that jury selection. Can you take a deeper dive into that?
Sure. This is sometimes called voir dire, VOIDIRE. Jury selection is a more helpful term. And this is a process where both the judge and the lawyers are involved. Oftentimes, the process will start by the judge asking the jurors a set of general questions. Some of the obvious things. Do you know the parties involved in the case? Do you know the lawyers involved? Do you know any of the witnesses? Have you ever served on a jury before? That type of thing. Then the lawyers will be allowed to ask jurors questions. And here, the purpose of this is that so lawyers can understand which jurors are the right fit for this case. It isn't a popularity contest. It isn't a way to trick people. It's for the lawyer to figure out, given the issues in this case, the story of this case, which jurors are the right jurors to serve here. And the lawyers will then, each side will have an opportunity to question the jury. They may question them as a group. They may question them individually. But that jury selection process can go on for quite some time because it's really important. The lawyers and the judges want to make sure that they have the best possible group of people available to sit on that jury. And it isn't until you go through the jury selection process that people can get a sense of which individuals make the right fit for that particular case.
And how many people sit on a jury, and do they sit through the entire case?
That's a great question. So it depends on civil or criminal cases. One thing that happens at the end of the jury selection process is jurors can be excused. There are different, what we call challenges. There can be a challenge for cause. That is a request from a lawyer, or it can come from the court that says, this particular juror may not be the right person to serve. They may have a certain bias that makes it difficult for them to serve on this case. Then there are things called peremptory challenges, which is where a lawyer can ask a juror to be excused for no reason. In civil cases, generally, those are three peremptory challenges per side. In criminal cases, generally 5. How many sit? Well, now you're getting down to the group that looks like those are going to be sitting. In a civil case, the general rule is that 6 people sit on a jury. And in a criminal case, the general rule is 12. However, in both cases, the court can have more than that number sit on a jury because, of course, we're concerned about the need for perhaps an alternate juror in the event that someone gets sick or cannot finish their deliberations. So more than 6 or 12 can sit to hear the case. At the end of the case, generally, the jury is going to consist of those 6 or 12 unless the parties agree to something different. And that's going to be the group that ultimately deliberates to decide the case.
And of course, this is a duty that Americans shouldn't try to get out of. It is a cornerstone of our American democracy to have a jury trial by your peers. But speak once more about how important it is to take that viewpoint.
It is a fundamental constitutional right that people have fought and died for hundreds of years, because it is perhaps the most direct way to participate in this democratic process, the most direct way to have a say in disputes in your community. And I think, as we talked about before, I think if you ask people who sat on a jury in the past, they will tell you, yes, perhaps the logistics of doing it were difficult at first, but they found the experience to be very rewarding because it is the exact form of participatory democracy that the country was founded on. So I hope when people get the summons, even though I'm not naive to the fact that it can be disruptive, that they can see that it's like these other things that make our democracy so unique, and participating in them is something that we all participate in because we all benefit from it.
Tom, as always, these talks are so informational, educational, really great info. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate it.